Guys, welcome to the Lore Reloaded, Trek Analyzed. I am your host, Lore Reloaded. Good to see all of you guys. If you're watching this video on demand, you know exactly how this works. I wait a couple minutes for people to come on in, and while I do, I remind you of a couple of ways you can absolutely help the channel by going to twitter.com/Lore Reloaded. If you want to talk to me about anything from Trek to Star Wars to Halo, sometimes I get into politics, sometimes I talk about just anything that annoys me. I talked about how I hated Verizon today, so just whatever you guys want to talk about, definitely check me out on Twitter. And of course, if you want to support the channel, if you're watching live right now, you can always do super chats, or anyone can go to patreon.com/Lore Reloaded. Fun stuff there. We've already hit one goal. We are close to the next. And I have a website. I got it already up. I'm testing it out. It's lorereloaded.com. It's kind of a filler right now. So if you want to check that out and let me know in the comments what you guys think. And with all that out of the way, how you guys doing? We got CRR in the house who has been waiting. It is 3:30 a.m. in Germany right now. And where's CRR? Watching the best show on the net. That's what he's doing. We got Darren Wagner. We got Jonathan Stevie, Nate Watson, Liberal Gunsmoker. I don't think I've ever seen Liberal Gunsmoker, so what's going on? Captain Jesse 1, what's up? We got Smith Gomon. Verizon is sin. That is accurate. Picard, USS Stargazer. Picard, USS Enterprise D. Or Picard, Enterprise E. I would say there's definitively a difference between Picard in the Galaxy class ship and Picard in the Sovereign. But not much beyond that. Got Disappointed Optimist, what's going on. Firestorm, of course. Dustin Peterson. Dosu, who has been hanging out with me. So let's just get into it. Now, I get it. The title plot shift. Hey, Laura, I'm glad you enjoy my videos. I love making them for you, Ambassador Carey. So let's talk about Picard. So yeah, the title, I will grant, is provocative. But this is going to be just an analysis like what we looked at when we looked at Cisco, or some of the times when I looked at Janeway. With anybody else, there's good and there's bad. And what's interesting to me is I really don't like a lot of what Janeway has done, and people bring up things that Picard have done as some kind of justification, I guess. And it's funny because I'm not saying that he did anything right either. I don't know why people assume that I'm okay with what Picard did versus what Janeway did. Professor Janus in the house. We got AJ Jones, Emmanuel Maharis, Don Juan. So Picard is a mixed bag, and I think a lot of that comes down due to his writing. I think he's done a lot. I think his writing is a lot better than what we see with Janeway and what we see with Archer and even Lorca. But he still has some really stupid stuff that goes on. And I really just want to delve into it. I want to get your guys' opinion too. We got UFP in California. Thanks for being amazing. You're providing meaning to my life. Well, UFP in California, I'm really glad I'm here to provide meaning in your life. And for those who don't know, the headquarters for the UFP is specifically located in California, right next to Starfleet headquarters. So, glad we could get that done right off the base. So, let's talk about some of the more critical things that I have with him, because I think it's really easy to talk about the things that he does good. I really do think his speeches, especially when it comes to things like the drumhead, are done really, really well. His opinions on a person's right to exist and to not necessarily be judged because of who he's kin to or whose blood is in your veins. I really do like those pieces of him. But Glenn Noble, you rock, sir. You rock. But I really... Let's talk about Picard and atheism. So in The Next Generation, and then Deep Space Nine, not so much Voyager, but The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine for sure, they kind of make it very clear that humanity is definitively atheist. and that it really leads me to believe that most of Starfleet is now secularist or atheist, however you want to look at it. Sci-Fi Sith Dan, what is going on? And my problem with The Next Generation is that I feel like, or I don't feel like, it definitively is not very kind to the other side of the argument. And you can tell this is most clear in Who Watches the Watcher, I think. But you can see it in other aspects as well. And while I think that Picard can be very, very tolerant, especially, again, when it comes to he's willing to give people a chance, no matter if they're kin to Romulans or not. He can be very insightful when it comes to dealing with or having an understanding of your enemy. But when you look at his opinions on religion from a writing standpoint, it leaves something to be desired. And I think that is very consistent in Starfleet itself. My problem with that is let's assume, for the moment, that he is absolutely right. That there is no point, ultimately, to religion. That it's there's no fact in it. That there is no God. It's just simply is what it is. Right? By being intolerant of other faiths, by being... Honestly, it seems like he is a lot like how they treated Jellicoe when he came on board the Enterprise. His whole gruff, militaristic standpoint. You don't change minds; you only stigmatize people. And I think there's a lot to be left desired. Of course, when I'm looking at the feedback and you guys reading, you really don't care that much about what his opinion is on religion. You more care about the fact that Wesley is definitively his child, which is fact and is canon. There's no way that Wesley is not. So, Professor Janus says, without religion, the market goes down by half, and Deuce Volt no longer is funny. That is true. Without the religious, Deuce Volt doesn't funny at all. It's not funny. Yeah. But what do you guys think? And when it comes to his thoughts on the military, I think this is another thing. It comes to religion. He thinks that military is somewhat useless. We see that in, I forget the episode, but he says it outright. I even use his words about how he thinks Starfleet is not a military. And that's kind of what I've gotten to when it comes to Starfleet overall, but through the eyes of Picard, definitely. He can be pretty intolerant of other ideas. If he disagrees with it, he finds it just completely aberrant. And again, using the ship as military, being a military commander, and with religion. But what do you guys think? I'd be curious to get your ideas on it. Darren says, from a submarine vet perspective, Picard was wrong about Starfleet not being a military organization. Sci-fi, don't take this the wrong way, but I don't like Next Gen. To me, it is kind of boring sometimes. That's how I got into Star Trek myself, was Next Generation. No Stripe 361 is late. Don't let it happen again, sir. Picard to Wesley. Shut up, Wesley. Fun thing on that, while I'm waiting for your guys' response. Will Wheaton hates Shut Up Wesley. If you want to get banned by Will Wheaton on Twitter, just send Shut Up Wesley to him. He'll block you completely. He hates that. Of course, I don't like Will Wheaton all that much, so it doesn't really hurt my feelings. Picard is from France. That's why he hates the military and religion. From France with a British accent. So during World War III, I assume the Britons took over and killed all the French. Ironically, you guys are more agreeing with me than I thought you would. I figured there'd be some disagreement here, which is fine. I mean, the fact is not. But I do... I think that his opinions don't really change a lot of ideas. And it's very frustrating to me that Picard will proclaim to be this great diplomat, this guy who, is open to all ideas. The Federation is so diverse. But then it goes back to how if you don't like what I specifically like, there is open disdain. Open disdain for it. Firestorm, was Picard a poster child for a failed version or a rebirth of communism? How he talked about it in the uses of it in the 23rd and 24th century. Every time I try to have a conversation about Starfleet and communism or even socialism, it always degrades because the definition of what we all agree communism and socialism changes based on whoever I'm talking to, so I generally don't even have those conversations. I do think that, at a minimum, the Federation was a socialist state, a working socialist state, probably a communist one. But I'll admit I don't have enough information on communism to really understand how it works. At Lore Reloaded, I think is something about Picard that the worst thing you can say about him is he's a fedora-tipping atheist, when Sisko is a war criminal and Janeway is a bad captain. Arguably, Janeway is a war criminal too, in my opinion. There's a couple of things that he's done that should have put him in jail. Never as bad as Sisko, never as bad as Janeway. I'll give you that. I think that Picard is kind of the poster child for the Federation. I will say that. I think he keeps as close to the ideal of what Jean wanted as you can get, which Jean had the most power over TNG, especially the early years, which would be Y, right? No Stripe 361 reminds me of that review of SF Debris where he pointed out how Riker stood above the evil and conniving. I don't remember that one. Easy difference. Socialism equal egalitarianism. Communism equals socialism through class, conflict, and struggle. Yeah, and then if I ask the next guy, Dalso, he's going to give me a completely different opinion. That's why I don't get it. Warning, Star Trek Discovery, the acronym STD, we should elaborate on that. Yeah. Is it bad? So we had this conversation. Let's look at Picard. Let's take Picard. So you have this guy, paragon of humanity. They go out and they explore the stars. They do a lot of good, I think. They help a lot of people, generally. Sometimes they make some bad decisions. Do you think that this utopia is worth losing, basically, or being ostracized basically for wrongthink? We kind of got into this on Sisko, and I guess it's going to be a recurring theme. But with Picard, and again, I wish I remember the episode, but he blatantly says, with disdain, that you shouldn't use combat, that combat's not a thing. It's not something you have to worry about. Starfleet is not a military organization. He scoffs at the guy. And I do think that he really impacted Riker, because Riker comes back and says that it is a minor point or purview of a starship captain's. You see how they treat Jellicoe, and then it goes back to religion again. He in Who Watches the Watcher, there's some context there because they had moved past it, but he talks about going back into the Dark Ages and believing in religion when they've risen above that. And those types of ideas means that there are going to be people that are ostracized, people that aren't liked. Is that worth? Is Picard, basically the pinnacle human, worth that lack of ideas in the marketplace? Nate Watson, who gave a super chat. By the way, guys, again, I've started a website, lorereloaded.com. Go take a look at it. I got some filler stuff there. I'm going to make it better. Because we hit our Patreon level, that is going to be active with updates every day. The only way this thing goes, the only way that I stay afloat is through super chats, you guys watching, and patrons. And so we have Nate Watson who says, perhaps the Federation wasn't diverse. We saw in Voyager Future's End, just an LA open mall had a shocking amount of diversity for Janeway. It may have many ethnicities, but culturally homogenized. That's a really good point. I like that. I like that, Nate. So did they basically traded diversity on what everyone looks like for a lack of diversity in thought? And it really does feel that way. Again, look at the Maquis. Look at The way the military's treated. Look at Jellicoe. Look at, what was his name? The captain who had the Nebula-class ship, and they went after him. And Picard wouldn't even hear him out. Like, he was just insane for going after the Cardassians, who'd done all these horrible stuff. Don't get me wrong, the captain was in the wrong. But still. Eric says that Star Trek is a post-scarcity society. That is why socialism works, because there's no rich or poor. Sure. Yeah, they had to bend stuff to make it work. I'm not saying that, but I think Starfleet is a very diplomatic organization, but again, an aggressive force. They're unprepared. You should never seek war, but always be ready for it. I would agree with that. Disappointed optimist in the house. Are we just ignoring the fact Picard tried to stop the saving medical research, just let 200 and something space Amish stay on a planet that wasn't even theirs? You're talking about... We'll get into that. That's a good point, though. How long had they been on that planet, though? So you're talking about insurrection, right? I believe that happened in insurrection. And especially when you juxtapose that against the Maquis. But if we're looking at insurrection, how long had they been on that planet? Do you guys know? Because it was very self-righteous. I'll agree with you there. How would Picard have reacted if Riker had been abducted instead of him? How would that affect him if he were able to go back to that moment? I don't know. I think it would have definitively impacted him on that. By the way, guys, if you're watching this, 21 likes with 70 people watching. What's up with that? Like or dislike? But get it up to 70, guys. Come on. Lore Reloaded. Should Picard make a guest experience on Discovery? I hope not. Right now, I hope he doesn't make any kind of appearance on Discovery. They're not doing Discovery well. They don't care about nostalgia. And if they don't want to get the people who would be nostalgic, if they want to get this new band of brothers or whatever they have, they definitively should just let the old cast go. Because I don't want them doing bad things or killing off the old cast, kind of like they're doing in Star Wars. Let's see. What's going on, Johnny Doe? Ben Maxwell was totally in the wrong, but he was also right about the Cardassians transporting illegal weapons. Ben Maxwell was also right about the Cardassians wanting to fight in Starfleet. Yeah, so here's the other thing. Here's another interesting piece to that, and that brings up a good point. So Picard has been noted as saying multiple times that the truth should always be in the light. He says that a lot, that the truth should be in the light, and that's just the best thing, right? And then he hides the fact that Cardassians were carrying arms because he doesn't want a war. His morals go only so far, and then when put for war, he backs off. Ripley Riley, who is an actual friend of mine who I play Pathfinder every Friday, good guy. He also has a YouTube channel coming up where he talks about his everyday stuff. Hopefully he goes live with that, because that's some funny stuff. Some Federation ships actually have chapels for religious ceremonies. While Picard turns his nose up at religion, the Federation doesn't do so as a blanket policy. Not in the Next Generation. In the Next Generation, that changed. Now, in the original series, they may have had that, but I don't know any time in the Next Generation where they at any point had chapels or anything of that nature. The closest to that in the Next Generation was nothing. I can't think of anything in the Next Generation. Klingons. You had Worf, who was somewhat religious, but it was never positively put. Now, in the original series, they did have religious things there. Deep Space Nine, there was a large part of it that was religious, but no Starfleet facility had anything like that. Deep Space Nine was a Cardassian made station owned by the Bajorans, and they were a highly religious people. In fact, that was people at the beginning looked down on them. And the main character, Sisko, when he talked about his faith or religion, a lot of the Starfleet officers were confused by that, or were put off by it. That's something that you just have to take a look at, too. in the Next Generation, Gene Roddenberry is just huge secularist. He was big on atheism, and moved very quickly to distance Trek and Starfleet from religion. However, in Voyager, we do see the Vulcans have religion. Chakotay technically had his religion when it came to being a Native American, but really that was more insulting than anything. I mean, it is as close as you can get to mocking Native Americans without actually mocking. Now, someone brought up a good thing that I just saw, by the way. Again, thank you, Ripley Riley. Why can't I talk tonight? Thank you, Ripley Riley. Again, stuff like that is the only way that this place stays afloat. But I will say that in Voyager, religion was done a lot better, and Picard did actually have an affinity for the Bajorans. But I wonder about this. I wonder if he said he cares for them, he wants them to grow. I wonder if he looked at them as almost childlike, and then that would be a part of the religion for him. Is that he looked at these people as smaller. And that's my thing. You can't have a conversation with someone if you look down on them the way he portrayed himself to be. I wonder what Star Trek's education system would be like, because in the real life, the education system let me down because I have learning difficulties. Oh man, you should see my education. Don't feel bad. I'd be interested to see that too. We see some school, them doing... that actually brings up a good point. So let's look at Deep Space Nine for a second, and we can refer it back. There is an actual episode where you have Keiko. Keiko was doing a school for the children, and so she was talking about the wormhole, which was the prophets, which is the gods of the Bajorans, or they believe it, right? But when she's talking about it, she's referring to it as the wormhole aliens. And if you remember, what's her name? Batty McBaddington from Badtown, who was always a villain and they never really wrote well. I forget her name because she's not worth remembering. I mean, the actress is fine. I just don't like the character. Anyway, she comes in and she makes a whole big deal of this, right? And pulls all the Bajoran children out. Interestingly enough, Keiko talks to Ben Sisko about it, and he seems to be okay in understanding where she's coming from. Kai Wynn was her name. Keiko's school gets blown up by religious terrorists. Yes, though that's more Kai Wynn. Again, bad person from Battingtown doing bad stuff. Yeah, so I don't know. I think that Starfleet has moved towards more skepticism. And I think that's unfortunate. Babylon 5, what I've seen of it, does it really well. It actually has religion in it. I watched this episode, and again, I haven't watched a lot of Babylon 5, so there may be a lot of context I'm moving here. But there's like a hell demon or a hell gate, or he thinks there's a hell demon, hell gate, in one of the different decks or something like that. And it really makes you question, did it exist, did it not? Religion still existed there. Firefly, I think, did it well. And Firefly, I think, does it well, and that's done by Whedon, who is a atheist. And so I really think that you could have a conversation and show both sides and do it well. And really, all of that just to say that, really, Picard, I think, was a great captain. He was really one of the better written captains in all of the series, all of the seasons. He still had his flaws. He still was intolerant in some way. But we don't look at it as intolerance because everything else is done well. He does all this goodness. He does a lot of good for the Federation and for other people. And it's worth talking about, especially since it's so glaring, in my opinion. Darren Wagner says Picard was a great peacetime captain. Sisko was a great wartime captain. I can agree with that, actually. I think there's good points to that. he was a solid diplomat too, generally. Now, early season 1, season 2, he made a lot of silly mistakes as a diplomat, but I think he got a lot better up until probably Insurrection, at which time he did a lot of horrific things, including letting someone die just because he was the bad guy. Daniel says that's what made him a good character, had flaws, unlike Michael Sue, who is perfect. Nate Watson back in the house. Nate, I'm telling you, the first meetup I ever do, I'm not big enough for a meetup yet, but the first meetup I ever do, I'm telling you, buddy, Coca-Cola is on me. First couple of drinks. You get the last couple. But Nate Watson, again, throwing out them super chats, which is what keeps this place going. Growing up in a Picard household would probably convince you against the idea of a loving God. I would agree. And it would definitively make you not like the military, think that it's unnecessary, that it's small. If you believed what your dad said, of course. What baffles me is that Picard basically met a god whenever he encountered Q. A god is omnipotent, just like Q, and he's still an atheist. And that's interesting, and that's a conversation that has been had. Is Q really a god, or is he not? I look at Q more like I look at Thor. Thor isn't a god. He just has technology that can't be understood to make him look or act like as if he were a god. Right? So I don't... Is Q a god in Trek? Lowercase g. But if we're going to do that, I think that if we're going to have him as a lowercase g god, then we're going to have the prophets as a lowercase g god, the Organians as a lowercase g gods. Because basically a god is just someone who can do things that are outside of the natural, quote-unquote supernatural. I don't like Discovery. Discovery handled religion a lot better, in my opinion, and I was very surprised by it. We got a new sponsor. By the way, guys, something you don't know, like Twitch, you can become sponsors, which means you dedicate $5 a month, kind of like Twitch. If I start seeing a lot of sponsors, this helps me out just as much as Super Chats. If I start seeing a lot of sponsors, I can start having special emoticons that you guys can use that will be specific to the channel, and sponsors will get to use them. And it's really cool. And if I get a lot of sponsors, I'll probably end up making some of those for you, or having them made, to be honest. But Kirk rejected Apollo, says Renee, despite being a god, and all then regretted it. Yeah, but the original series did have religion, and they had humanity and humans who had religion too, and I believe Enterprise did. I might be wrong on that. And I think they did it better in the original series. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for Trek to say religion is good. I'm looking for Trek to give a different opinion on it and let people decide. And Trek has done very well at doing that in most everything it's put its mind to. Kind of like, and again, just looking at Discovery, look at Stamets in Discovery. But before I talk about that, Ripley Riley, if you do in fact become a sponsor, I'll buy you more pizza on Friday. Yes, and I'll buy anyone else more pizza. Black Cats, who is now a sponsor up in the house, gets more pizza on Friday as well. When Stamets goes into the mycelium network, which they're somewhat making me believe may be some supernatural piece to it, you have the two Stamets who are talking to each other, and even the evil Stamets talks about how God may or may not exist, and there's no way to know. I really like that. I really like that conversation because it leaves it open. What did Space Cat say? Starfleet in the Next Generation is different from Starfleet in DS9 to the point where one has good intentions and good morals and the other is willing to do anything to survive. Yes, I will agree with that. I think the conditions were different. I think that in Deep Space Nine, they were pushed to the edge, and that's why you have that. And I'd be interested to see how TNG handled that if it came up. It never really did, but I think that would be very interesting. Anthony Meinhold, hello. When are you doing the giveaway? So that's a good point to bring up. If you guys are watching this, if you comment video on demand on all of the videos, up until the 28th, actually now, you enter into a chance to win an Eagle Moss Galaxy class collectible that I will send to you. If you're in the United States, I'll send it on my dime. And what'll happen is if you comment, you get entered for a chance, 1 comment per person per video. That'll be chosen on the 28th. I'll send it out in March. If you're a Patreon for as little as $1 a month, Patreon for as little as $1 a month, you get extras, all kinds of goodies just being a Patreon. Plus, you get a chance to win a Sovereign Eagle Moss collectible that I'll send you on my dime if you're in the United States. If you are not on the United States, I will send you a message. We can have a conversation about it and see if I can get it to you. If I can't, maybe, I don't know, we can talk about other options and I'll send it to somebody else. I know that makes a lot of people who aren't in the United States angry, but I'll tell you what, if we fully fund my Patreon, I will send these free of charge, my dime, or if I get 100,000 subscribers. But until then, I can't do it. But I'll work with you and see what we can do. Also, while I'm on it, patrons, if you become a patron within this month, after it's cycled on and all the after it's cycled on the 1st and all of the stuff has come out, I'll be sending a specialized shirt for this month only. There will only be one made ever of this shirt with my logo and stuff. It'll go out to everyone, again, within the United States for sure. If you're in another country, I'm going to see what I can do to get it to you. All of that out of the way, let's take a look at what you guys were talking about, because I'm sure you don't care about that. Adlor Reloaded, was it Picard's overconfidence and naivete or Q's desire to rattle Picard and prepare them for the Borg that resulted in the deaths of crew members and Q who? I think it was a mix. I think Q... This is fanon, right? This is my personal opinion. I think there is some evidence behind it, but there's not enough to say it's specifically alpha canon. I believe that the Q showed humanity to the Borg, or showed the Borg to humanity, showed them both, met them, so that humanity would ultimately defeat the Borg in Voyager. I think there's evidence for that, but I don't think there's enough to call it strict alpha canon. Also, I believe that Q needed to bump Picard down a few notches. Picard thought humanity was near its peak. You can see that in the very first episode, where he is so overconfident about how humanity has just risen above. And I think, and that the Federation is the top dog. Starfleet can't be beat. And I think that Q knocked him down a couple pegs and killed a few people to get the point across. And so I believe it was both. Sith Sci-Fi Dan, sorry man. If you have time, please check my YouTube channel and videos. Yeah, I keep seeing you say that. I'll take a look at it. Not right now. Probably in the next couple of days, I'll take a look. Sith Sci-Fi Dan. Heck, Species 8472 would have destroyed the Borg without the humans' help. Absolutely true. I don't want to get into that argument again, but Species 8472 would have destroyed the Borg, and I believe that other species would have taken care of 8472 before they got back to the Federation. I don't think they would have destroyed. And also, because we know they have diplomatic relations, they can be reasoned with, they would have found someone that would have talked with them, that they would have backed off and went back to their corner. There's more than enough evidence for that. We have Firestorm. Picard, so great after one action to be a captain of the flagship. Did he know someone? Sure, there were many others to run against him in the same spot. Yeah, that is true. Never really thought about that, but yeah, he kind of definitely went to the flagship pretty quickly, based on his opinion. Of course, what he did in the Stargazer was considered pretty mighty. He got a lot of accolades for that. So, I do think he was the right for the job. What if someone didn't want to eat replicated food? Would they allow someone to cook food? They had food cooked in Voyager, though that was a special case, so I don't know. If they'd done that, would have been interesting. Probably. I couldn't see them not doing that. So let's get to the next part of this. We talked about Picard's intolerantness, which I think we can agree. I look forward to the video on demand where people who come out after the fact tell me how I'm wrong. Let's look at treason. Let's consider if he was treasonous. So I get on to Janeway, and I say Janeway assisting the Borg was a form of treason. And it was. I truly believe. Now, it may have been justified, but I believe it was a form of treason. I also believe that of Picard. I think that Picard letting Hugh go because he saw humanity in Hugh, and he thought that would change the Borg, was a horrific mistake. We see that it was a horrific mistake. And there should have been more than a slap on the wrist that happened to him. Plot Shift asks, what do you think Picard would have done in Janeway's shoes dealing with species 8472? Would his issues with the Borg play into his approach against a force superior to them? I think Picard in Janeway's shoes would have tried to talk to them multiple times. Remember, sorry, let me stop for a second. Blake Stout, I'm looking forward to watching The Walking Dead tomorrow. Please don't ruin it for me. Any spoilers will be deleted, and I'll block your channel straight out. I'm sorry, I hate to be that way, but if I see any spoilers on The Walking Dead, you'll never be able to comment on my channel again. That's not just for me, but for other people. And I forgot what I was saying about. I think that he would have talked to 8472. 8472 attacked one of the crew members, and then they attempted to talk, and then all they got back was the galaxy will burn. Here's the thing. First off, we don't know who Kes was talking to. Was she talking to the leader? Was she talking to a soldier? Was she talking to the local KKK member of the 8472 that no one listens to? We don't know whose mind she connected to. That's number one. Number two, Starfleet common mantra. Starfleet are not humans. They're not like you and me. They're not like any military. They will sue for peace at the chance of getting people killed. If you look at what Cisco did, there was an episode where they, and it was a really cool episode. It was a court drama type thing, and they actually broke the fourth wall with the main cast talking, and Worf was on trial. And at the end, Worf admits, it was my bloodlust that caused me to attack this ship before verifying. And Cisco says, you verify, even if it means you get you and your crew killed. Starfleet does not act like any military known to men. They should have attempted 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, Sequest. They should have attempted 5 or more times to get it. And they didn't. Voyager did not try 5 times. And here's something else to consider. I don't think they really tried 5 times. You might weasel your way, Sequest. You might weasel your way. You're technicallys there. But I don't think they've really tried 5 times. Look at it this way, too. Consider this. Every time species 8472 wanted to kill a Borg, they killed Borgs. They killed Borg planets. They killed Borg ships. It was like a 10-to-1 ratio. When they wanted to kill Borg, they would kill 10 Borg cubes at a time. Tens to hundreds of thousands of Borg drones. When they attacked Voyager, they either missed it or they didn't cause enough damage to destroy it. You're telling me an Intrepid-class ship has more protection against it than a Borg cube? Seriously? No. It makes more sense that they were trying to warn off Voyager. Got a super chat up in the house by Nate Watson. Again, Nate Watson, I'm going to buy you all the Coca-Colas first time we meet, man. All the Coca-Colas. An argument for Janeway over Picard. Janeway was willing to destroy the Borg and in-game. Picard was not an I-Borg. Of that, I will agree. I think that puts Janeway over Picard in that instance, definitively. He valued, and you even and the interesting thing in that, and this is a good point, is that in game, you even, well, it may have not in game, but in I want to say Unimatrix Zero, you could see Janeway cared about the people, the Borg, because the Queen was killing Borg left and right. So we know she does care about the civilization. Picard made the wrong decision and let that get to him. And with Janeway, in that instance, I think, no, she didn't even give up then. She was willing to destroy him, even though it would have hurt her, because she knew she was attacking and killing an entire civilization of people. They're still people. And, you know, I have no issue saying and liking Janeway when Janeway does things or she's written very competently. That's why I get so passionate about this. I think Janeway could have been an awesomely written character, but she was way too inconsistent. And the only way for her character to make sense is to be written as a tragic character, a science officer who wasn't ready for what was put upon her. And we watch the slow degradation and destruction of a human being, all the way to the point when she at the end, in Endgame, travels in time, destroying untold amounts of histories and people. People don't exist because of this. All to save, at best, a dozen people. At best. At the end of the Dominion War, Starfleet was already going back to their old ways with the scene where Ross and Sisko wouldn't drink Martok's blood wine over the bodies of dead Cardassians. I don't know that I agree with that. I don't think I do. Because you could still be militaristic and not want to drink wine or get drunk over dead bodies. Yeah. By the way, guys, if you want to get my attention, you guys are talking like a couple of comments every second, so it's hard for me to catch. If you do @lore reloaded, either space or no space, but it has to be @lore reloaded, it'll actually highlight for me, and I can see it. But if you do like @lore, then I'm not going to see it. If I miss it, I don't mean to miss it. It's just you guys are talking to me, you know, so many comments every second. @lore, an insurrection, Picard tries to stop the force relocation of space Amish when Starfleet was trying to do life-saving medical research. I don't think that was written well either. I'll agree with that. I don't think that was written well either. And I do think especially if they hadn't been there for a long time. How long had they been there? A year, a couple of years? Something like that? If they only been there a few years, that planet's not theirs. Is it possible that 8472 thought the whole galaxy was Borg, hence the galaxy will burn? Yeah, so let's look at that. And that's one of the reasons why I give 8472 so much the benefit of the doubt. 8472 is minding their own business in their own space. Just absolutely minding their own business. All of a sudden, this hostile invasion happens, and right on their doorstep is hundreds of cubes wanting to not only kill them, but turn them into something different. And at that point, all they see is blood. They think they're under complete attack. So yeah. 8472 were written, says Richard Hawkins, were written to very inconsistent extremes. So 8472 was a villain of the week, and this is why they were written so poorly. They were a villain of the week. This was just a way of getting 7 of 9 on the ship. That's all they wanted to do. And they wrote a villain of the week to get 7 of 9 on the ship. And then they decided to kind of retcon that and bring them back. And that's why they are written inconsistently. And again, it just goes back to poor writing. This is why we all argue, because it's poor writing. TNG has its issues. All of them have their issues, but Voyager is something special. Picard, I think, did commit treason in Hugh. Do I think, should he be locked up? I know I said he should, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Should he have been locked up? Should Picard be in a jail cell because of what he did, ultimately, especially with how the Borg came back? And while you guys are answering that, Emo Kylo Ren, what would Starfleet need to be ready for war? Starfleet effectively always is ready for war. It's just it's written like they're seriously like they're a race in Stellaris. They have great science. They have pretty good tech and weapons. Civilization and economy is awesome. They're just pacifistic to an unreasonable degree. They're willing to let a lot of people die before they turn around and fight back. So that's what I think. At Lore Reloaded, do you think Picard's unwillingness to use the Hue virus would keep him from threatening extinction with the 8472 virus? Absolutely. The only time you see 8472 really come after the Voyager, mean to destroy them, is when first they invade their space, and that's because 7 of 9 pulls them in. And then they say, hey, we got a bioweapon. Then it's on. Firestorm, if the Federation thought Picard was mental after the Borg attack, why was he still in command still? Because it's Starfleet. That's exactly in line with Starfleet. Oh, you have PTSD from fighting the Borg. We're just going to keep you away from the Borg. Because again, it's written, sometimes they're a military and they're efficient as a military. Sometimes they're not. No Stripe 361 for pacifists. They always seem to be in a fight with someone. That's because they're pacifists. To an unreasonable degree, they always look like they can be taken over. They always are ill prepared for war, and war always comes their way because of it. Ripley Riley, who plays Stellaris a lot. Me and him need to start playing that more. I told him I was going to play, and then I never do. Because I'm always busy with you guys. There is a wonderful Star Trek conversion mod for Stellaris. I actually have it. And it is. They actually did an update, too. It's actually really well. It's really cool. The mod allows you to play almost any era. You can even play as the Terran Empire, which is kind of cool. The Space Amish were on the planet for 200 years, but the Federation owned the planet. Okay. I don't remember a lot from Insurrection. They're on there for 200 years. I don't know. That one seems a little dicey for me. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. I do think that ultimately I'd probably move them off if the medical technology could save as many people as they claim for it to save. It is your home, but if we can save hundreds of thousands of people, then yeah. No Stripe, at Lore Reloaded, you would think that there would make them way more willing to fight and defend themselves and ready for it. Yeah, that's Starfleet doesn't learn because Starfleet is the pinnacle of humanity, right? Starfleet is the pinnacle of all that is evolved, and they don't need to fight. Let's see. At Lore, wasn't Guinan's advice which helped convince Picard to agree with sending Hugh back? How much responsibility does she have? She has none. She has no responsibility, in my opinion. Ultimately, the person who has responsibility is the person who makes the call. He took counsel, and I believe he took bad counsel. Unrelated, but with how starved we are for Trek games, do you think Discovery game is possible? And would you be willing to play it if it is given the quality of the show? I'll play most Trek games that come out. And I'll let you guys know what I think about them, and I'll play them while we're doing live streaming. I think that the way gaming has gone, I don't agree with most anything the guy says when it comes to his politics, but I think that Jim Sterling is right when he says games are moving towards a service. And so I don't think there's a lot of service you can do for Trek games outside of Star Trek Online, so I don't think they will. But I'll definitely play it. And someone said, treason must be knowing. Sequist. Treason must be knowing, not inadvertent. All right, so let me ask. I'll tell you what. Let me ask you guys. Do you think Picard had a good idea of the devastation that the Borg would wrought if he didn't destroy them? Was it inadvertent when he did nothing and allowed the Borg to thrive when he could have stopped them? Is that inadvertent? What do you think, audience? Nate Watson, all up in the house with the super chat. Someone needs to match Nate. Y'all need to match Nate. Insurrection makes more sense if you assume the planet's atmosphere had mind-altering substances like that episode of Enterprise. It would explain why Picard and the others make stupid mistakes. Though not Data. Data can get drunk. So, yeah, it makes a lot more sense. You know what? Headcanon acknowledged. What if Hugh's individuality destroyed the Borg? What would we say then? We say that he got lucky. He made the wrong decision and got lucky. Renee, Genesis of the Daleks conundrum. Picard should have lost command after Iborg. I agree. I think he should have. I think he wasn't fit for duty at that point. They had the ability to stop an enemy that would continue to destroy not just their civilization, but civilizations across the galaxy. The Borg are the ultimate evil of Trek, and the Dominion is better than the Borg, in my opinion, in a lot of ways. He had the ability to stop them, and he didn't. Firestorm trying to get me in trouble. What's the Sovereign class top warp speed? I actually have a series called Starship Lore. I've already talked about the Sovereign and the inconsistencies in its warp speed. In theory, depending on a documentary and what's said in it, I think it's 9.997 or 9.9997. I don't like it. I don't think it should be that. But that's what it is. Considering, at Lore Reloaded, considering how good Borg is destroying individuality, it was monumentally stupid to send Hugh back or even hope for some good outcome. I agree, Black Cats. I agree. Actually, it's mentioned that because of Baku's foundation of youth, everyone is doing stupid crap because young people are stupid. Rolls eyes. I'll admit, young people are stupid. I know that makes a lot of people mad, but when you're young, you make a lot of stupid mistakes. There are videos out there that I have done highlighting how stupid you can be when you're young. I look forward to when I get that big where people want to destroy me and they start finding those videos. If Picard is guilty of treason by not destroying the Borg, how much worse was Janeway? She helped that. I agree. I'm right there with you. The Amish homeworlds. I love how you keep calling them space Amish. SF Debris did a really good synopsis of that. And you guys haven't watched it, go to sfdebris.com, watch his review of Insurrection. He is a direct inspiration of this channel. Without him, I don't think the channel would have existed. Him and a few others. He said, because there's this really stupid line. It's like when you take, what is it? When you take technology from the man, the man loses something, or you lose something from the man. And he puts in something that's just awesome. He does a great review of it. The Amish homeworld's atmosphere had mind-altering chemicals that made you feel youthful and rebellious. Okay, well, that makes sense. Even if Hugh has shown human qualities, he should have used him. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. I agree, CRR. Teenagers are eating Tide Pods. I don't believe that's actually happening. I think that's just a meme. What would you have done if you were in charge of the Enterprise and Hugh was on board? I would have not humanized him. I would have not met him. I would have put a virus in him, and I would have sent him back. You know what you need to do if you're ever captured? If you're ever captured, or you are ever, what's the word I'm looking for? If someone kidnaps you, you need to humanize yourself to them as much as possible. You need to say, hi, my name's James, or my name's Lore Reloaded. I have 2 kids. I love my wife. I was born. You need to tell them as much about you as you can. You need to become a human to them. And if you're ever kidnapping somebody, or you're ever captured somebody, an enemy, you need to talk to them as little as possible to get what you need. And you don't need to know who they are, or what they do, or what their point is. If I was in charge of that ship, I wouldn't care who Hugh was. I would care that Hugh wanted to destroy everybody. I would have then put the virus in him, and I would have sent it back. And you know what I would have done that night? I would have gotten a big Nancy Drew book, a hot cup of milk, drank that milk, And that's how I would have slept that night. Like a baby. Like a baby. At Lore Reloaded, just wanted to say, love you vids. Would you support a return to the Delta Quadrant? And which Delta Quadrant species interests you the most? I'd have to think about that. I'm going to start a series on the Delta Quadrant. And there's a lot of species I like in the Delta Quadrant. I'm not a huge fan of them overall, but I think it's worth looking at the lore of the Kazon. The Voth. Oh, man. The Voth are really, really interesting to me. There's just a lot I would do. Pentacle, who sometimes likes what I do, sometimes he gets into it with me. You blame Cisco for using chemical weapons, and yet you blame Picard for using Hugh as a human biobomb. Have some consistency, please. All right, so let's walk this down. Here we go. Hugh is a part of a civilization that takes the individuality of other civilizations, strips it from them, and uses them to either kill or assimilate their sisters, their daughters, their mothers. They destroy entire civilizations and remove everything from that. Basically, what could arguably be worse than death. I advocate, and this civilization had the purpose of destroying the Federation and Starfleet. They wanted to completely decimate Starfleet and destroy everything and take all of Picard's family, all their friends, everything from it. Okay. Let's look at the Maquis. Cisco wanted to go after a guy who did little more than basically stop being in the Federation and wanted to wage a war against the Cardassians, where arguably they did have a point of wanting their own freedom. The people he attacked and used a bioweapon on, those people did nothing directly to him. Arguably, there were a lot of civilians on that planet, and it was really up in the air whether that land truly belonged to the Cardassians or not. Additionally, the Maquis are Federation citizens, so he used biochemical weapons on his own people to get one man. Additionally, he destroyed a Maquis fighter, a Maquis raider, killing at least 1 to 2 people, possibly up to 10 or 12, when he didn't have to. So, undying end-of-the-world civilization that won't stop until you stop them, Maquis. Undying civilization, Satan incarnate, the most worst thing you could ever meet. A dude who blew up a transport. I don't feel inconsistent. Ozzy NF, my first live stream. What's going on? At Lore Reloaded, another go. How do you think the other captains would have done with Hugh? I think Lorca would have done it instantly without regret. I think Cisco would have probably done it. Janeway, no. Picard, no. Archer, no. Kirk, on the fence, gonna say no. Sci-Fi Sith Dan, you are not blocked. I can't see what you're saying. Principles are principles. You can't just drop them for conviction's sake. Nothing has context. You gotta do it or you gotta do it. Everything is black and white. If you murder, it's wrong. There's not self-defense. There's not war. There's not other things. If you murder, it's wrong. Black and white. By the way, I love you, Tentacle. We just disagree. At Lore Reloaded, my old crew wanted Captain Jellicoe to take over the Enterprise, and Picard lost his command. It would have been interesting to see Jellicoe. I wish Jellicoe would have stayed. The Voth are interesting. How did the Hadrosaurs make ships? Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but the Voth culture is very, very interesting, I think. Context. Like Lorca said, context is king. It wasn't going to work anyway. It's a case of destroying your soul for some dubious outcome. The episode leads us to believe that it absolutely would have worked. If it didn't, it was worth a shot. I think there is a difference between bombing the Maquis, who have no real chance of destroying civilizations, and at best, at worst, are going to start a war between the Cardassians and Starfleet, which already happened. Especially when you have other ways of taking care of business without bombing planets, because he was going to bomb multiple planets, versus fighting the Borg. But yeah, Black Cats. What I like about Sisko is he was sort of down-to-earth kind of guy, prone to making mistakes. I just feel they made Picard a little too much of a goody-two-shoes. Picard was Gene Roddenberry's ultimate. The pinnacle of humanity. Sisko was Gene Roddenberry's vision of humanity, but as realistic as it could be. I think Sisko was as realistic as you can be and still be Gene Roddenberry. I don't think Lorca's Gene Roddenberry. I think Lorca's realistic. I don't think he's Gene Roddenberry. I think Sisko is. Riker the Seagal, would you watch a series that takes place in the Mirror Universe? I would love a series that would take place in the Mirror Universe. I cannot become your first patron in sci-fi, says Dan. I'm sorry. Jay Wiggs, Archer and Kirk would have killed the Borg if they knew they were Stalin Hitler machines. I don't know. I sincerely don't. I think that they would have had issues with it, especially after talking to Hugh. In the U.S., treason is the hardest crime to prove. The only one in the Constitution. You need 2 overt acts and or witnesses. Even presidents can't control it. Okay, I didn't know that. That is true. Lorca is, I think Lorca's 22nd century. But yeah, not 24th. I would agree. At Lore Reloaded, Michael Sue would have found a way to befriend the Borg, and next season we'd have a Borg crew member that's still connected to the collective. Absolutely, it's horribly written. Guys, let me remind you that stuff like this is brought to you by people like you. If you're watching this, thank you so much. I couldn't do it without all of your support. If you have the ability and want to see this place, see me thrive, don't forget to check out patreon.com/Lore Reloaded. Become a sponsor or check me out on Super Chats. Last but not least, guys, I am going to be sending out this. You need to comment on my video on demand. So when this goes live, re-comment. It can't be here. I'll send it out to a subscriber. You have to be in the United States for me to send it free. If you're not in the United States, I'll talk to you. Make sure you check your messages, because on the 28th, I'm going to be contacting someone, sending it via message. You only have a couple of days to get back to me. Patrons for as low as $1 a month will have a chance to get this same thing. I'll send it to Eagle Moss. I'll send it to Eagle Moss. I'll send it to you if you're in the U.S. If not, I'll work with you. Also, if you are a patron, I am doing a special shirt that I'll be sending to people, patrons. It'll be for this month only. It'll be the only shirt ever made like this. And then I'll probably have other merch as well. Guys, I'm going to end it here. I want to thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to see you Tuesday morning for Lore in the Past. Wednesday we have the Geek Breakdown, then Saturday and Sunday I'll be on. Tomorrow I will have the Galaxy Class Breakdown. So looking forward to that. You guys are going to love it. It may be a part 2. There's so much information there. As always, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Guys, I'm going to see you on the next Lore Reloaded.